Hey, everybody, and welcome you to another episode of The Other Side of the Story, where we are delving into people's life journeys, making a great difference in life where they are right now, successes, and what they learned along the way to get to where they are. Today, we have the right woman, Lisa Mills, who I know personally, her and her husband, and her two grown men now. She had two boys when I initially started connecting with Lisa. But anyway, she has done some great things in her life, and I knew that this story needed to be told. You're going to be inspired. I promise you're going to be encouraged. And if you have dreams in your life, it's never too late. All right. But Lisa is a author. She's a speaker. She's a comedian. She's a pastor. She's a businesswoman. The woman's been on ABC Family Channel. She has been on a cover of the Speaker magazine. She's done some great things media-wise and what she's doing with her life now. So, Lisa, we are so excited to have you on this podcast.
Well, awesome. I'm so glad to be here. It's just to reconnect, first of all, to see you but to all your listeners and just to talk about one of my favorite subjects about, what God can do, take you from there to here.
Yes, yes. And I always say this all the time, Lisa, that, there's always a backstory to everybody's story. And just always encourage people, man. Everybody needs to tell their story because somebody needs to hear it. Their life will be encouraged because of it.
Yeah, that's the other side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other side.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
your journey has been amazing to take you to where you are right now in 2024. And you're involved in so many life-changing things. And we'll get into some of that. But tell us what you kind of learned maybe about your life and in your life as you were either growing up or things that happened in either your childhood or things that you developed as far as a mentality or just seeing yourself where you are now, or if you did see yourself where you are now.
Well, that's a really good question. So I don't know that I saw myself where I am right now, but without being conceited, because I was the most insecure child you could ever possibly imagine. But down deep inside, Bishop, I knew that there was something special in there. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to mine it. I didn't know how to dig it out. I didn't know, but I even as a little girl, even growing up, in poverty and being raised by an amazing single mom. All the things that really should be obstacles and hurdles that are tough to get over. Um, and I'm not making light of those, but I'm saying that there was something in me that knew that there was something special in there that needed to be developed. My mama had this thing, Bishop, where she used to always say, "It ain't always going to be like this."
Yeah.
She'd say, "It ain't always going to be like this," and there was just that part of me in there that just kind of believed her. I didn't know how that was going to play out. And then when it started happening, I thought, okay, this is it. It's happening. This is it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so the challenge is really, Lisa, back into that where you were being raised by a single mom and, no doubt there were some issues and struggles that you encountered and faced. So what do you feel like that's began to teach you about yourself and having to go through some struggles, adversity?
Yeah, I think in those early childhood years, when you're growing up with an absent father and you're dealing with some really grown up issues, right? Like I'm not
Yeah.
that's not I'm not immune to knowing that happens to everyone, right? I don't think that I'm special, that I had obstacles, whatever. But I do say this. It let me know that in spite of those things, your life can be amazing. Right. Like
Mm-hmm.
now at 50, I look back at that 7-year-old Lisa, the 8-year-old Lisa, and I remember her, being in front of television in front of the Carol Burnett show, thinking that was the most amazing thing she'd ever seen. And my gosh, I can't believe that's a job and somebody could do that one day. And then later on, I remember hearing just a breakaway. I remember hearing a woman preacher who I just love, and she was saying she was listening to another man preacher who she just loved, and she said she was sitting in the audience, Bishop, and she looked at him and said, "I could do that, and I could do that well."
Yeah.
Right. Well, there was something about me when I would see other comedians or I would see people doing some great things. There was something in me that knew I could do that. Nothing in my life looks like that. At 7, 14, 21, I was homeless in a hotel with a 5-month-old baby, unmarried, had no idea where I was going to go at the end of the week. You know what I mean? Nothing in my life pointed to where I live today, except for there was something down in my spirit that said, it ain't always going to be like this.
Just to stop on that one part, you're in a hotel room. You said homeless, practically.
Yeah.
Raising an infant son, and when you're in that moment of life, what were you thinking?
How in the world did I get here? That's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
You're laying in the bed, backtracking a lot of steps, Bishop, and you're like, where did it go wrong? What, how did, not only did I get here, but did I get somebody else who had no choice involved, right? I think when I'm sitting there, knowing that not only did I get me there, right, but it's gonna take me to get us out, right? And I probably don't have it all. That's just where that faith started to brew up, the faith of my youth.
Yeah.
And all the Bible stories started to come back, and I knew who I reached out to the Lord, and I knew that he could help me. But as far as that first act of faith and that first hand to the plow and that first trying to be solutions driven to get out of that, I knew that was going to be up to me. And I think for anybody who's down in the lowest part where your life looks nothing like that, it could look like, right? It could look like, even if you don't believe that it will, but you know that it could, if you worked hard enough or whatever. I think there has to just be a place where you own it. There's such accountability and responsibility to say, I'm here because I had a part in that. And if I'm gonna get out of here, I gotta have a part in that.
Mm-hmm. That's good, because I like that. Speaking to people when we do get down and out, we get knocked down by life. You had a determination of a choice, right? You could either stay
Right.
there or do something about it. And you started doing something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that started, I can't tell you, I went to it. It's funny. So Richie and I ended up, who is that my son's father at the time, and we've been married now for 26 years and happily married. He is
Awesome.
fine and he is mine, and that's what my tattoo says. And so so anyway, he's amazing, right? And God made something really beautiful out of that. But he and I had a choice. We had a choice that we could either continue down a lot of things that had plagued our family. We'll call those generational curses. Whether it was divorce, whether it was single mom, whatever, poverty, what lack, whatever. And he and I took a while, Bishop, for us to realize this will be us too, right? We love our families. That's, but there was a pattern, and we knew we didn't want divorce to be our story. We didn't want single motherhood to be our story. And so it took us coming together and really, man, those early years were rough.
Yeah.
It's tough to build a family when it's all wonderful and you're from a legacy of faith and there's no lack and all that. That's tough enough, right?
Mhm.
But for Richie and I, we just decided that we were going to come out swinging, you know?
I love that. It is so good. Those are great principles you're teaching, man, about in the sense of breaking a cycle. That's not going to be us. No doubt, again, people watching, listening, we all got stuff in our past and our families, whether it's divorce, whether it's poverty, a mindset, whatever it might be. But you and him determined we're not going to stop right there. We're going to break this. That's so powerful.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't say he and I may have had some more choices than some of our family members, right? We
Right.
may have connected with some other people that could help us or some different things. And so I just want to say that my mom did the very best she could. His dad and
Sure.
mom did the very best they could. So but Richie and I just knew probably what a lot of people don't know, Bishop. We knew there was something more.
Yeah.
We knew
Yeah.
there was something more. And I think if you can really know that, like believe it, you can't lay down at night and be satisfied with anything less than that.
That's good. We're telling people now there's something more in you.
Yes,
That's right,
absolutely.
man. I said this other day, Lisa, that life will challenge your staying power. Life will challenge your endurance, man.
Yeah. That it will. And you can either be one of two people. You can either be laying on the mat, right? Up on the ropes in the ring, or you can determine that there's going to be hits. Let's just go ahead and settle it. Like
Mhm.
we live in this world, we're gonna have some hits, we're gonna take some hits. But that's just the thing is you got to learn how to take them.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to absorb the shock of it. You got to learn how to, you got to learn how to let that thing land, but position your body in a way that it's not going to take you to the mat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it takes getting up off the mat and wiping some blood a little bit. I know that's graphic, but that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It takes wiping some blood a little bit to get up and go, I don't like that. When Clay was first playing football, Bishop, I have this rule that if you sign up for anything, you're gonna see it all the way through, right? If
Yeah.
I put any registration money on it and I didn't have to put the minivan in the wind and get you there and take the orange slices and all that, that ain't my gig anyway. You're gonna see it to the end. And the first time he got hit, he was like, excuse me, I don't know if I like this. And
Yeah.
I said, well, you're gonna like it for a few more months. And and so what he learned was if you don't want to get hit, move. If you don't want to get hit hard and stay down, put them pads in the way. Get up, learn how to take a hit and keep on going. Right. And
Yeah.
that's really the principle of faithfulness, right? Like we're gonna keep on going. And so those were some things I think that I was so blessed to learn early on. Is the only reason I'm sitting here on this podcast with you today talking about this.
It's good. People, and I'm glad you're saying these things because as you're talking, I always get teaching and points from people talking. You're giving it to us right now, man. You got to learn how to take a hit because life's going to hit you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I learned that if you can position yourself, and I learned that I first heard I first heard Hillary Swank talk about it in Million Dollar Baby, and then I started looking it up in boxing, and I started, finding out what does that really mean? Because she has this thing where she explains it, how to take a hit, and then
Mhm.
what it means when your opponent leaps off their feet and the momentum comes at you, and you can position yourself in a way to absorb all the shock of that, right? Like you don't just let somebody. You're not a rag doll. You just don't let somebody do that to you, right? Like you're always positioning yourself for the race you're in.
Well, that's good. Before we move to another place, I want to connect with you about. I heard this about Tom Brady, which is really just relates to what you're saying. He played what till he's 45 in the NFL. My
Yeah,
God, if you ain't heard of Tom Brady, you ain't been living. Anyway, so
right.
he said this. He said he had to learn after his first few years in the league how to get hit and fall and not get injured.
See, wow.
I thought that was a pretty
Wow.
good analogy, huh?
It is because
Right.
you're going to. And the really, really awesome part of that is, Bishop, that when you fall or you're on the mat, hey, we're not gonna stay there. We can talk about that forever. But the
Yeah.
real deal is people, you told me a long time ago, and I know we'll move to something else. You told me a long time ago. I'd probably been setting out on a dream for maybe a year. I won't ever forget you pulling me to the back of the room that we were in and just I don't know if what was going on in your own heart or whatever, but it caught me so random. It was so off guard. But you said, I need you to understand. No hello, which was rude, whatever. Uh no lead in, no nothing. But you said it cracks me up because you're so serious. But you said other people need to see you make it.
Hmm.
I never forgot that. Like you said, other people need to see you make it. Now I never forgot. I didn't understand it, but I never forgot it. And it wasn't until later on I understood that when you are down on the mat and you are on the ropes, people are watching you. It's more than just not wanting to take the hit. It's what am I teaching my children? What am I teaching people who are watching my life? And do you know what I mean? And there was
Yeah.
something about that, Bishop, the things I'm saying right now. That's great. Anybody can say that. You can Google self-help and find these words, but I did not want to be here at 50 talking to you being a fraud.
Oof.
I wanted that thing to play out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. So I know for people listening, watching our story, your connection goes back to you were involved in the church. I was leading a church at the time full time. You and your husband came, your kids, and then at some point in that journey, uh, you became my personal assistant, and helping me in every area. In that time frame, what was you learning about yourself, or tell us some things about that kind of launched you and where we're about to go?
Okay. So a little bit of backstory on that. So in 1997 is when we met. And I know we look super young and
Wow, man,
people
we've known
find
each other
that.
a long time, huh?
Yes, very long. So I had been married in the spring, finally, made an honest woman, got married in the spring. And then over the summer, God had begun to deal with me about leading a different life at a faith level, not just financially, not just, that kind of thing, but success is relative, right, Bishop? It's a relative term. And so I
Yeah.
knew that success needed to be in that area as well. And so Richie and I were looking for a church, and so I wandered into one and stayed for the next almost 18 years, and it radically, radically changed my life. Having said that, I had worked for someone, and her sister, Diana Hall. So her sister Donna had come to church and had told her about it. And I was working for her at a car dealership, and she said, "Hey, you might want to, I think I'm gonna check this church out." And so she knew I needed some Jesus. So I went. I went, thank God for her. I went and just loved it. And we stayed there. We were involved in ministry for so long. And then the opportunity came in 2005. There was a staff position that was open. It was not originally an assistant to your office. You didn't have an assistant at that time. Really, I think Jake was helping you do some travel. And I started out in the main office, and then I don't really even know how that really happened. If
Yeah.
I look back, it was really just God, because
Yeah.
there was some discipleship that needed to happen in my life at a different kind of level. And so if you ask me, once I started working with your office and developing that office and all that, how that affected it, probably good, bad, indifferent, all the ways. Like I needed so much of what you specifically were sharing. I needed so much to be on the executive hall and to be in an executive position where I could learn from other people, right? So I don't know. There are no words. That's why I'm fumbling here. There aren't really words to say during that season what it taught me. I was helping your travel, right? I was arranging all your travel. I was arranging interviews. I was arranging, all kinds of different things as you were on the road and in the house. And all the while, the Lord was teaching me how to do that for myself, and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I didn't know Bishop, you realize I didn't know what a Sky Mile was. I didn't have a credit card.
Yeah.
At one point, I didn't even have my own car. Like when I was working with you, like you think about how in the world would I even go do this for myself, to later on flying all over the nation and everywhere from New York to Hawaii to whatever. How would I even know to do that? How to do that? Except for I learned it working there. I tell everybody, anything you see in my life that you think is really awesome and professional and successful and whatever, I first learned it in the church.
That's amazing. Again, the principle you're teaching about where people might find themselves right now in life, it's a preparation for where they're going.
Yes. Everything is used. Nothing is wasted if you don't waste it.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? If you don't waste it,
Mhm.
like the Lord's willing to let it be used. The people in your life that love you are willing to let it be used. Like there's a lot on your life that's saying, hey, there's some perpetual motion here, some momentum here for us to take this thing and let it propel you, right? But if you don't want to let it, then it won't.
Yeah. When do you start feeling from that point, when did you start feeling this thing about, because you've always been, to me, you've always had this gift of just making people laugh, bring joy, smile. I could just talk to you 2 minutes and start laughing at things you say because you're just funny to me. You know, how you frame things and word things. But I knew you've always been funny. So when did you start feeling like, hey man, I'm feeling something bigger in my life than what you were doing at the moment?
Well, so, just through a series of different things professionally, I was starting to move into some transition. I was, just thinking about taking a year off. I was going to homeschool my children, right? I felt, called to do a few different things. And at church, we were having a conference. And so if you were to say, when did you feel it was in the moment that it happened?
Right.
There was nothing leading up to that. Except for, I'm a big fan of comedy. I love comedy. You know, we've talked about that for years. Like I love comedy, and so I appreciate it. But we were in a meeting at a friend of mine, Jill, and she was having a ladies meeting for this conference, and there was probably 15 women in the room. And she was like, you know, it's going to get really heavy in this one little spot right here. This speaker that we've got coming in is nationally known, and it's going to be deep teaching, whatever. And it would be so great if we had a comedian. And I thought, yeah, that would be great. And and she said, Lisa, you could do that. And I have no idea. I just looked there. She was sitting on the hearth of her fireplace. I'll never forget it. I turned around and I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I have no idea why I thought I could stand up in front of 600 women and do stand-up comedy. I have no idea. It's insane, really. I look back on it now, you know, because I wrote 10 minutes of comedy. I wrote a 10-minute set the night before while I was in my shower, you know, and which was a gift. And because I look back now and think I've never written 10 solid minutes that were proven to make women stand on their feet and clap and get booked from that gig, and the rest be history. I've never done that since. It's way more involved than that, by the way.
Yeah.
So if you say like, what was the moment that you launched out? I think I got pushed. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think people, again, have something in them, and you did. And sometimes it takes a little somebody else seeing it to confirm what you already knew. And so that point, you really start taking off. So tell us how you began to transition to a comedy business. I mean, business, ministry.
So yeah, so that was wild. You know, it was all together, right? When you have a gift, and you realize that. So when you have a gift, you can be used in many different genres and many different arenas. And so, you know, and I was always taught early on, when you work clean, you're always going to work, right? Even in a corporate world, right?
Well, say that
And
again.
so
You hear that again. Say that again.
when you work clean, you're always going to work, right? And
Yeah.
in comedy, you know, you can have shock and awe, and well, I'm a woman of faith, and that's just not part of who I am anyway, but you can toe the line, you can step on the edge, you can, you know, whatever, even in business practices. But someone taught me that really early on. And they also taught me that if you could get to year 5, Bishop, matter of fact, it was Sean Pierce. And she is holds more records than any comedian, even secular, for the most sold product. And so anyway, she taught me that if you can get to year 5, you got staying power. The challenge will be to get there. And she was not kidding. The challenge was to get to there. And so I joined an association. I found out that there were not people in my area. There was no one in my town doing what I do, right? But there were people doing what I do. They just weren't where I was at. So you got to I had to find those people. I had to go find my tribe, find somebody I could learn from, find somebody that I could glean from. And so I ended up finding the Christian Comedy Association, which I found some peers, some mentorship, whatever, learned how to write. And like I said, I got booked from that first gig. And funny, just a real funny story. So I got booked, and I got a small little gas stipend, right? And it was in a coffee mug, and it had that free Chick-fil-A ice cream
Come on.
coupon in it, right? And later, years later, I was invited to the corporate office of Chick-fil-A with the Kathy sitting in the front row to teach about the seasons of leadership to their people. And I told that story. And
What a moment.
yeah, it was so full circle. It was so full circle. And I loved it. And Kathy was like, yeah, that was the Houston Mall. I remember that in the 70s. Like, I couldn't believe it. But later on, which, you know, they don't compensate traditionally and that sort of thing. When you're invited, that's enough. And but I remember opening the mailbox a few days later, and something really sweet and special was in there from them. And so my life has had a lot of those full circles from that first initial moment. There'd be way too many to tell, but just know this. If I hadn't have found some people doing what I do, right? I don't know that I would have ever, if it hadn't been for the Christian Comedy Association, if it hadn't been for finding other comedians who were dedicated and committed to working clean, other people going, hey, you know, because listen, you're not as bad as people say you are, but you darn sure not as gifted either as people say you are. Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna need to find somebody who goes, no, that ain't good, girl. You need to hone that. And I found those people and my
Mhm.
peers there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're telling us is so important again, for people listening and all, is that, what you have in you, it has to be sharpened because iron sharpens iron. But getting around people, I'm gonna encourage everybody today, get around people doing what you want to do, but you might not be at the right level yet where they are, but it's going to mentor you. Mentorship is so important. And that's what you're sharing, and which was really powerful, really continued your journey progressing because you got around the right people. So I'm telling these people, get around the right people.
Get around the right people. I'm telling you, and they're out there. You know, I don't
Yeah.
care if you're in my husband. Listen, I cannot even tell you, Bishop, the support of that man, my family. You know, we sat down in the early years. I remember I was on auditions. I had an acting agent. It's how I got some acting gigs. So I had an acting agent at one time, you know, and I'm in Atlanta and I am on the bed of a hotel room with my two boys and Richie, and I had been in auditions all day. We had to do a showcase all day long to try and get these an agent, and just hoping one would pick you. And we're eating a $5 pizza on the bed. That's all they
Yeah.
had the money for to feed us that night. We had gas money to get home, right? And I'm just believing God and believing this thing that I feel, and my family's believing with me. Like, you know, we were fully bought into this is something special. And so I say that to say, yes, find people outside your life, right? But don't discount the ones that are in your life. People say you got to be willing to pay the price. Well, other people going to cash the check with you. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to make sure that everybody, that you can, is brought into that, you know?
Yeah, that's good. First of all, you got to believe in God because we're people of faith.
Yeah, that's
Then you got to
right.
believe in yourself. Then the people around you believe in you, and that's going to be
Yeah.
your inner circle, your family. That is a great point. Thank you for sharing that because we do tend to overlook who is closest to us.
Let me tell you something. My husband has financed, prayed through, believed for every dream I had. If I said I wanted to do underwater fire prevention, that joker would get a pool and a hose tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like, he believes it's some Lisa Mills.
How long? So today, how long you been in comedy now?
It's so funny. So next Tuesday will be 14 years from the day I
Wow,
stood on that stage at New Hope.
14
14 years.
years.
Yeah.
That,
It's
I get,
wild.
I just got to stop and say, you went from being raised by a single mom, struggling in some
Yeah.
poverty situations to you in a hotel room, homeless almost, with a
Yeah.
child,
I would have
going
been by Friday.
through, and look where you are now. That gives people, that just gives us hope and inspiration. Your story is amazing.
Yeah, I like to say God did it in spite of me, you know, because I really had some moments along the way where I was like, you know, I could sit here and be positive and motivating and awesome and all, but
Yeah.
let's just be honest. There's some moments where you're like, is this ever going to happen? I want to quit. This is too hard. Like I had all those too, Bishop. Like that, you know, I don't want to be unrealistic here for someone with a dream because the
I'm
bigger it
glad you're
is,
sharing that. What did you do? What did you
yeah.
do when you felt like that? Tell us what you did when you felt like that.
Yeah, well, I gave
What
myself
kept you
this rule right.
going?
Yeah, I gave myself this rule right here. We're allowed to cry for 24 hours. You
All
know,
right.
I love how Nick Saban lets his guys celebrate for 24 hours, right? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and I felt like, you know, I could cry for 24 hours and then you're gonna have to get up and wipe your face and either some kind of decision is gonna have to be made. And if you're gonna quit, then quit. Right? But you're not gonna drag it out and be a victim and wallow in it and this went bad. And because the only way, Bishop, to do comedy is to do it in front of people. It's not comedy till it comes out in front of people. What do I mean by that? Why am I interjecting right there? Because you can practice the saxophone at home and then go do it in front of people after you've got it all together.
Yeah.
Comedy, you only practice it in front of people, which means you bomb in front of people. So there's a lot of times that you drive home in tears
Yeah.
when you're first getting started. And so I just would decide, all right, I'm gonna cry on the way home, and tomorrow I'm gonna get up and write something better. I'm gonna get up and
Yeah.
write something better. And then there were some days where I would have to call other people, and they would have to speak life over a situation that, you know, or when I was moving, transitions were really big for me, Bishop. I'm very, very goals driven, right? And so I knew that in the first 5 years, I knew that I could have that staying power in comedy, but I also knew that I wanted to also add, not swap, but I wanted to add corporate speaking. I wanted to keynote. I wanted to have a 90-minute program that I could do, that bankers and doctors and lawyers and teach them from the principles of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Teach them how to connect, the power of connection, the art of influence, and engagement, so that they could have, their patients could have a better patient experience, that their clients in banking, I've done so many of those, could understand the connection actually means trust, right? And so how to get their clients to trust them. And so I knew that there was more in that than just the funny, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. If I'd have stopped every time I bombed on stage in those first few years,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have never got to those stages. And those stages sent me through the roof.
Yeah, that is good. You're just saying so much powerful things, really. You are about can't stop where you are. You know, there's more in you that if you quit, you'll never see it, right?
Right. You'll never see it. And then,
Yeah.
you know, by the time I got to that place, I was on the national board of directors for the Christian Comedy Association. I was enjoying my peers and all the things. And then, you know, my tour for 2020, let's just talk about that, how you wanted to transition into business.
Yeah.
So in 2020, I had a tour, a spring and a fall tour that was unlike anything I had ever done. Right? It was going to challenge me. It was going to be the thing. It was finally, without trying to be tacky or whatever, but it was the final breakthrough of the 6-figure, right? To think that you could even do that in 10 years, starting comedy in your 30s, you know what I mean? Like that was enough. That was wild enough for me. But I thought, this is going to be amazing. But there was a part of me that was like, this hamster wheel is a lot. This is a lot, Bishop. All the
Yeah.
bureaus that I had, I was working for, all the bookers.
Mhm.
I think that fall tour of 2019, in 6 weeks, I was home 6 days, right? I got to where I was touring like 40 weeks a year. It just was a lot.
Yeah.
And I knew I had taught comedy. I had taught business of comedy. I taught a lot of things over those years, those 10 years, to other people. And I had always said, do not get married to the vehicle you're in, right?
Oh, say that again. Say that. I love hearing points. Say it again.
Yeah, don't get married to the vehicle you're in. The vehicle is not the big deal. The destination that the vehicle is taking you to is the big deal. And if you don't understand that, you won't want to get out of that car. You just won't. And so I had done some acting. I've written a couple of books. I've done comedy. I've done keynoting. I've done you name it. John Maxwell certification that I love, that I began teaching some of that material. Like I've loved all of that,
Yeah.
but they were seasons. And when that thing shifts, you better shift with it. That probably, if you want to know why I've done so much,
Yeah.
that principle alone right there.
You got to shift with the season.
Shift with the season. You cannot be married to a vehicle. You can't say, like, listen, if we have peach trees here, like, and if they stay so long trying to bear fruit out of season, they do what? They die.
Yeah.
You'll die, right? And you
Yeah.
just better be happy with them last few jokes you told. Nobody's gonna know you beyond that, and that's fine too. You're not gonna build beyond that. Like that's just where you're going to stay, and you ride it out for as long as it lasts. However, if you say, "Oh, okay, Lord, you're moving me into this now," right? Then I'm gonna get in that one, and I'm gonna drive as far as you're gonna let me drive in that. Well, that led me to being around a friend of mine. So he had a program, a weight loss program that he was developing, and it was in beta in 2020 when all this change was happening in my life. I'll never forget, in March of 2020, I watched my calendar. My email came in, Bishop, like a Wheel of Fortune, spin, like because I was doing so much healthcare, like hospitals. I had just one whole spring tour of nothing but 7 hospitals in one state, like in like 2 weeks, and so they were the first to go. And I'm watching this. I finally just shut my laptop and pushed it to the side. And I said, Lord, I trust you. You did not bring me this far. See, here's the thing about walking with God, and we're gonna move on.
You
Here's
already
the thing
go
about
ahead.
walking with God is He and I got history, right?
Good.
I'm not the most righteous, the most holy, the best Christian. I'm not that, but I have been doing it long enough to know that He ain't never left you, girl. He ain't
Yeah.
never left me. So I don't know how you're gonna do this,
Yeah.
but I'm just gonna trust you. And so all of those began to go away, and the Lord began to deal with my heart getting quiet. I got to come off the road. I got to be with my family and just hear. I got to hear, Lisa, what's the next step? What are we doing next? And I could have cried. Are you kidding me? I could have just been in a fetal position. My whole business, I worked 10 years to get here, and it all just went away in one day. So I was in the a friend of mine was developing this weight loss program, and we had talked about it, and whatever, and it was embedded. He said, Lisa, he knew I was wanting to lose weight, and he said, Lisa, I think this would be helpful for you. You want to try it? And I was like, well, yeah, sure. And so I tried it. Long story short, over 10 months, I lost 100 pounds.
Wow.
And it was an incredible program, and lots of support, wonderful. And he was coaching people on this program for free.
Mhm.
Right. And I remember one day, ironically, we were in church. That's where everything happens to me, Bishop.
Yeah. Good
It's
place
in the
to be.
house of it's in the house of the Lord, right? Like
Good place
I
to be.
believe you take care of his house, he's gonna take care of your
Come
house.
on now.
And so anyway, I remember one day I just looked at him and said, you can monetize that, right? Like, you don't have to do that for free. I love that you do that.
Right.
And then, a couple of Longhorn Steakhouse dinners later, meetings over whatever, I came on board as the executive vice president. He's president and founder. And yeah, so now we see clients and provide them with prepackaged food for a weight loss program that is amazing all over the United States. And so, yeah,
Well,
it's been,
you launched a business,
yeah.
because of COVID, of course,
Mhm.
pandemic caused you to shift
Yeah.
and all that. Now here comes something else that was in you, and now
Yeah.
you launched a business. And what's the name of the business?
It's Skinny Box.
Skinny
And
Box.
yeah, Skinny Box. And so you can look that up, skinnybox.com. My before and afters are up there. I know women are always curious about that. You're like 100 pounds. What did she look like before? But so, yeah, I will say this. Yeah, COVID, and I'm not making light of that. It was horrible for
Oh
so
yeah.
many people. But I think you can even be in the pit, right? You can be down. I lost an entire 10 years worth of work, I thought.
Wow.
And in one moment, Bishop, it took me 10 years to build up to that.
Hmm.
And in one moment, he not only replaced it, gave me way more than I ever built by myself in 10 years.
I'm about to jump off the couch and run around the room. I'm telling somebody it only takes one moment
Yeah.
in your life, God can turn in a different direction to even do greater things. That's what started happening in your life. So you've gone from, again, I'm just rehearsing this. People need to hear this. It's never over. You got more in you. Gone from your background, your upbringing, underdog story, whatever you want to call it, to overcoming and to transitioning to different areas of your life at different ages of your life, being successful. What an example. And then at this point, you're a comedian, you're in business, help start a company, and now you're a pastor, you're in ministry, you're on a staff. Tell us two things about that. Tell us how you got in that, but tell us how you're navigating, because there's no perfect balance in life, right? So how are you navigating, and help us to navigate when we have greater capacity of trying to continue to stay married, your family. So share with that how you got into ministry. Now you're a staff person. Help us out.
Yeah. So during 2020, we had, everyone went online, right, for ministry. And we had to do that for about 9 weeks. And during that time, I was off the road, like it looked like, and my pastor just had heard from the Lord, and he knew that I was going to be available. And what I had been doing with other companies, and I would fly out to Houston and work with electric companies and co-ops there and teach them things and build teams. And, I love that. And he needed someone to work with their servant leadership teams, our servant leadership teams. And he said, hey, Lisa, would you like to to come on board and let's see what God's going to do and all that. So on Pentecost Sunday of 2020, I was installed in a ministry there at Central Church in Covington, Georgia, and under the wonderful leadership of Pastors Daryl and Donna Allen. And I can't tell you, so when we first started, we now have, in the last 4 years, we've probably tripled the amount of servant leadership teams
Oh,
that are there. We've probably tripled the areas of ministry. When I look back at where and listen, this isn't just because of me. This is because this is what I'm trying to say. You got to be in the right place. You got to discern a thing. You got to hear. You got to be, plugged in. And if I'd have been pining and if I'd have been crying and whining, I would have never said yes, right? And I said yes to this, and it was one of the best yeses I've ever given. And I can't tell you what it has done for my own life. And you know that, like at this season of your life, things are way different. Like this is what I want to be doing. And I told the Lord, I said, you tuck me away on City Pond Road in this little town and just let me be in this little office and pour out into these people and disciple and mentor and build teams. I'm going to be happier than a ham on Christmas, right? Because obviously this is the car right now.
yeah.
And it was in that sanctuary that this business was born.
I just love, again, I am just totally inspired today listening to you. And if you're listening and you're not inspired, something's wrong with you. But I'm telling you, you have really shown us that anything can happen in your life. You got so much more in you where you are now. People that are watching or listening, and your capacity is greater. Your influence, your impact, all that you're doing, Lisa, is amazing. So where do you see yourself as we get ready to close? Where do you see yourself, or going from right here, and what do you feel like your future holds in the sense of I don't know, ministry, business, comedy, what?
Yeah, I'm still performing. But it's I don't want to have a went. I want to have a cent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was another thing that you told me. I'll never forget. You spoke a word over my life at an altar one time. And you said, Lisa, there's going to come a day when you're going to get to pick and choose where you go. And I thought that meant that my calendar would be so full.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had that in 2019 where I had to tell people, no, I just can't come. But in the fullness of that now, I understand that it's this moment.
Yeah.
That I still get the good invitations. I'll be with Lisa Harper in October. I'm so excited about that. That's my hero in the faith Bible teacher, right?
Yeah.
And I'll still be, I'm headed to probably, there's a hospital in Kentucky I'm headed to teach a few things for them. And, just, I'm still getting the quality, the good.
Yeah.
It's just that I get to pick and choose where I go now. And so I say that to say that's where comedy is for me.
Mm-hmm.
But where business is, oh my goodness, like we're launching a new line in the spring, we have a new supplement line that's coming out. We have a new transition program. We've partnered with a performance athletic company to help us do that. And it's just really incredible. What we've experienced in the first year of business, we're not in our first year right now, a couple of years in, but in our first year of business is what you normally, if all cylinders are working correctly and also in it's an ideal state, is what you would accomplish in 5 years of business. And so it's been
Nice.
really, really successful and amazing.
Mm-hmm.
For ministry, where I want to be, Bishop, in my heart, if I could have anything in this season of my life, I probably just in my flesh, I would go away and I would be in some mountain cabin, curled up with a big sweater, studying scriptures and not people in at all.
Yeah.
At all. But there's a part of me in this season. I just turned 50 and I'm still young. But
Yes,
there's a
you are.
part of me that is just focused on, all right, who are you mentoring? What are you discipling? Whether that's business, whether that's, I got some daughters-in-laws that are going to come along someday soon, right? What am I going to leave to my grandbabies? How am I going to pour into them? I've poured into women for years, Bishop. And now, see, what you plant in one season, you'll eat in the next, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
say that again.
I said, what you plant in one season, you will eat in the next, right?
That's so
That's why
good.
you're always careful about what you're planting, because it's gonna be you're gonna have to taste it. And so I've planted a lot in women's ministry. I've planted a lot in business. I've planted a lot in marriage conferences and people sitting on my couch with me and Richie talking them through, right? And so we've planted a lot. And in this season, I believe that the Lord is going to allow us to see even more of that harvest that we didn't have the capacity to get our mind around back then, right? And so I'm just excited to watch it all unfold and to still be used, still be used.
That's great. I mean, I'm telling you, it's great. I think I'll add to that in the sense of, where you are right now is that the impact and the legacy that you're pouring into people is so important. And I heard, I think it was John Maxwell that said this, but for everybody out there, and your example that you have not done this, but when he said this, when you stop growing, you stop.
Mm.
So
Wow.
for everybody, take it after Lisa Mills, the example you're setting for us, Lisa. Really, you have not stopped growing ever since I've known you, and you are not going to stop. Greater things ahead of you.
As a matter of fact, in March, I have just another aspect of my life. I became master certified as a health and wellness coach this past fall. And so I'll sit for the national board in March, and just got a new book coming out, Jason and I, just in the health and wellness space. And so, yeah, like I promise you, he'll take you further. His dreams are better than our dreams. The Lord's dreams are better than the ones you come up with for yourself. So just let him keep writing it, man. Let him keep dreaming. I love how Lou Engle says that. He said a dream and he wrapped your body around it, right? Just let him keep dreaming.
It's good. If you could, because I want to get you to tell us how people can follow you and book you and get a part of what you're doing. But if you could, I'm throwing you on the spot. Say 2 or 3 things. If I'm sitting here listening to this podcast or watching it, and man, I'm at a place where I feel like I'm stuck. I'm at a place where I feel like I'll never see my way out, whatever it might be. What would you say 2 or 3 things that are just come to your mind that are so important to start doing or don't stop doing, just keep doing what you're doing, that aspect?
Yeah. So if you're stuck, then that's a whole different place than having an obstacle. If you're stuck, you've probably been there for a minute. All right. Nobody's ever stuck and went, oh, wow, I'm stuck. It takes a while spinning the tires and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say you need to quit spinning the tires, right? You need to quit whining. You need to quit feeling like a victim. You need to quit thinking all the negative, all that self-talk, right? That you're just amplifying you're giving voice to what the enemy's saying to your mind. Just stop. Now you need to think about, how would I tell somebody else to get out of this? How would I tell somebody else? I wouldn't go, I don't have any idea. You would even begin trying to come up with something, Bishop, right? You'd be stretching the capacity of your mind to help a friend who was in a place like that, right?
Okay.
You got to care enough about where you are, like you care about other people, to go, okay, what would I tell someone else? Well, that's what I'm going to do.
It's good.
That's what I'm going to do. And a lot of times it's just stop all that negative, get out of the victim mindset, and say, what can I do today? And sometimes, Bishop, that's get up and take a shower. Sometimes that's get out of the bed, open the curtains, get some sunlight in, drink some more water, get on up, right? Get outside your house, right? Take a walk, whatever. It can be that simple to begin.
It's good. Thank you for sharing that. I'll end with this. Motion changes emotion.
Yes, I've heard you say that a million times.
Moving in life, you're going to come out of it. Thank you so much, Lisa. You have blessed my heart so much. I promise you. I am so inspired. I'm going to go jump over a wall and run through a troop. So tell us how people can connect with you through whatever venue you have.
Yeah. So I'm on social media. I do a lot on Facebook, Lisa Mills, comedian speaker, also Instagram, Lisa Mills, LOL. I don't do Twitter. They'll probably deport me if I was on Twitter. I'd be canceled. Cause sometimes I talk without even thinking, and I just feel like we should all be surprised. But Lisa Mills Speaks. That's my website. I have a YouTube channel. If you want to see my comedy, you want to see some speaking, whatever, you can go there. Listen, if you Google Lisa Mills comedian, it's all going to come up. If you want to see, I've got a special on Dry Bar Comedy that if you want to see an entire special, that's available to watch as well. And so, yeah.
That is so good. And I always say this, if you own a business, if you're a leader, entrepreneur, you need to book this woman because she will bless your business and your life and your whole team. So thank you again, Lisa. We so much enjoyed it, and you just be blessed. Thank you for being on the podcast.
It was a privilege. Thank you, Bishop.
All right. Now, if you're watching this, share it, like, subscribe, Get this message out. I promise y'all somebody needs to hear this, and we'll see you next week.